Do you like trying new things? Are you adventurous? Then you'll love the Prisoner Wine Company. The wine is smooth, rich, and approachable. Go to theprisonerwine.com/wolf for 20% off plus shipping included on your first purchase. Wine is like fine art. It can be good, it can be bad, and every once in a while, it can be truly transcendent. Introducing the Prisoner Wine Company. The Prisoner Wine Company insists on doing things differently. Like 20 years ago, when they decided to combine some of California's best and most unusual grape varieties to make a bold and complex blend, aka their namesake wine, the Prisoner Red Blend. From the shape and weight of the bottle to the label featuring Francisco Goya's artwork, every detail is striking and memorable. The wine, smooth, rich, and approachable. And now the Prisoner Wine Company will ship all of their rule-bending blends direct to your door. You've got to experience these wines for yourself. Try one bottle and you will taste and see that Prisoner wine is good. Bottom line. Go to theprisonerwine.com/wolf for 20% off plus shipping included on your first purchase. Get it in time for the holidays. This is the best deal they have available. Get 20% off plus shipping included at theprisonerwine.com/wolf. That's theprisonerwine.com/wolf. Hey, Jordan Belfort here, the Wolf of Wall Street in the Wolf's Den. Got a great episode today on the podcast. I have Jamil Damji from
KeyGlee and Triple Digit Flip.
No, Triple Digit Flip
Yes,
is
sir.
the show you probably know on A&E.
Yes.
But listen, I've had a bunch of real estate people on the show that do things like flipping and no money down. But dude, you're like in a class of your own in terms of size, number of years in the business. So let's just start with the stats here, right?
Sure.
How many years you been in this game for?
I got into it in 2002. So I'm a wholesaler. Wholesaling is where we buy and sell contracts primarily. In addition to that, we also fix and flip houses. So our company will routinely do anywhere between 60 to 100 transactions every month.
Okay.
But because of that volume and the notoriety that we gained in being able to accomplish this business model professionally, we actually franchised nationally in 2020. And so now we're in 90 markets across the US, and our franchises are doing an additional couple hundred deals a month. So we've exploded over the last couple of years. It's been a phenomenal trajectory, and that, you know, along with my best friend Pace Morby, who you've met before and interviewed, we got to star on Triple Digit Flip, our A&E television show, and it's been an amazing time.
So let's go back to the beginning in 2002. How
Yes.
was the real estate market back then when you first got into this?
So funny enough, I had no training in real estate. In fact, I was supposed to be a doctor. I'm of Indian descent. My parents, as soon as I came out the womb, they were like, "You're Dr. Damji." Right. And so I went through that path. I excelled in my undergraduate. I applied to medical school. I got an interview and I aced my medical school entrance exam. So I thought I was a shoo-in for a spot, but I wasn't. I didn't actually get in. I was told to reapply the next year, and it broke me. It broke me because I really didn't know what to do. Somebody else had the decision-making capacity to change my life.
Right.
So after a little bit of depression, I decided entrepreneurship would be for me because I could control my own destiny. So I got into a media company, something I had no knowledge about, but I had friends who were struggling to make sales, and that's something that I'm good at. So I walked in, I essentially wrestle control away from these people. I get 51% of control of the company just because I'm so good at sales. And I'm so good at sales that we end up just selling these websites. This is 2002.
So what were you selling exactly?
Websites. So in 2002, when the internet was still just only porn, we were really trying to convince people that they should bring their businesses online. And so I was going through the yellow pages, cold calling people with a little boiler room call center, trying to convince people that online was the way to go. Now, we were selling these websites for $600 a pop, but they essentially cost us $700 to make. So every time I sold a website, I lost money. I didn't really realize that model wasn't going to work for me until...
Was there some longer term strategy to make back the money?
You know what? We weren't really... We didn't know our numbers, right? So when you're just a fledgling business and you're trying to figure stuff out, you don't account for all your costs.
I think that's sort of like an I Love Lucy episode where like they're making something that's costing $1.20 to make something for $1.
I mean, it's comical, right? And but it definitely led me to wanting to see other things. So I'm overhearing a conversation my business partner is having with his dad, who was a home builder. And they were struggling because they were looking for more building lots. They were tearing down these old bungalows in Calgary, Alberta, where I started in Canada. And they would knock these bungalows down and they would rebuild these duplexes. And it shook out to making about $160,000 all said and done every time they did a project. Their limiting factor was access to these houses. Now, since I had no money, I had no training, I had no understanding of real estate, I did know how to bird dog. Like I could understand if I could go out and find an opportunity for these guys, I might be able to create some value. And that's what I did. The next day I was actually walking my dog and I walked by a house that was for rent in one of these neighborhoods where this construction was going on.
Right.
I actually tried to rent that house myself a few months prior, but it was a couple $100 out of my budget. So this is just to give you an idea of like where I was financially in my life, right? $200 made or break where I lived. But I called this woman, and since this house had still been for rent months after I had applied and tried to rent the spot myself, I asked if she'd be interested in selling the property. And her answer was yes, for the right price. I asked what that number was, and it was $350,000. So I run back to the office, talk to my partner, ask him how much his dad would pay for that house. He said $400,000 all day. So now I have a $50,000 problem. How do I buy this house and sell this house without having $0?
Right.
So I do what I know how to do. I get back to the phone book and I start cold calling lawyers.
Right.
I get all the way to the letter S because there's no gatekeeper who's going to let me talk to an attorney. I don't have, I have no money. I'm not, no retainer. I'm not a client of anyone's. I'm trying to ask a question and no one wants to, give me an access. But this new lawyer, David Steed, he had just got out of law school, answered the phone himself. I told him what my problem was and he explained to me this instrument called a skip transfer is what they call it in Canada, where you basically buy a property, you put a property under contract,
right,
and you sell the rights to that contract for a fee. So he explained to me how to do it. He told me about how to write my name as, Jamil Damji and or nominee as the buyer.
Right.
And then on the next contract, I would be the seller. And then I was to bring both of those contracts to him. And after a couple of weeks, magically, I'd have a check. And I did. It was $48,000 and change after it was all said and done. So you can imagine for a person like me that was struggling.
It's a life-changing moment.
It was a life-changing moment. But
Right.
I realized that there was an opportunity for me in this business model. And I went ham on it after that. So I went from single family to apartment buildings. I started putting apartment buildings under contract and flipping those to developers who were
Right.
doing condo conversions. Made millions of dollars up until 2008.
Right.
And then, like most people, I got too big for what I was actually capable of doing. And I wanted to be a developer, right? I wanted the prestige. I wanted to be in construction. And so what I told my sister, who was my business partner at the time, and still is actually, I thought, let's get into the development. Let's do these projects ourselves. So the next 4 buildings I had under contract, we actually closed on them. And I had my mother and father co-sign construction loans. Well, not a year later, we were upside down on every single one of them.
Right.
And the banks came and took all of our cash, all of the equity, all of our homes. And essentially we went from millionaires to destitute in months. And that was my first ride,
Right.
my first ride on the roller coaster.
You shouldn't really feel too bad. You weren't the only one that in 2008 got completely decimated, right?
Yeah.
I guess the question always is that when you get, beaten up or knocked down like that, what do you do when you get back up, right?
Right.
So what'd you do?
I became a comedian.
A comedian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not talking about my career in comedy here, so it didn't do well, right? But I did. I went to Los Angeles. I thought, hey, I can make it. I had a little opportunity, a script that I had written got optioned, and so I thought I might have had some chops. And I went down to LA and I started doing open mics. I started writing sketch comedy for at UCB, which is Upright Citizens Brigade, and from there I started getting videos on Funny or Die, which is Will Ferrell's comedy website.
Okay.
Wasn't getting a lot of traction, but I enjoyed myself.
Right.
But in order to live in Los Angeles, I had to figure out a way to supplement my income.
Right.
And that had me looking east to Phoenix. Because what I could see you could do in Phoenix at that time was you could buy a condominium for like $26,000 that would rent for $850 a month. So if I could buy one of those condos and close on it and
Right.
cash flow that money, I could actually pay for my life in LA. And so that's how I was funding my life. Now back then, there were short sales primarily is what I was buying.
Right.
And if anyone is viewing who had been in that game, the short sale game at that time,
I mean, he's buying a property for less than the mortgage on the property, right?
Correct. And at the time
That's
of
the GFC, so
correct.
property prices were down, right?
Right.
People were over leveraged.
Right.
Okay.
And you'd essentially negotiate with the bank, right? So if it didn't matter what the property was worth at one time, actually, I primarily bought condominiums in one building. And I continue to buy these units that were worth originally before the crash $400,000, and I'm paying $25,000 for these things. Comes a point where I'm writing contracts on more properties than I can actually close because you didn't know at that time if a bank was going to approve your offer or not. So
Right.
the game was write more offers than what you can actually buy to see what comes back and sticks. So I get a couple of deals that get approved by a bank that I actually don't have the funds for at the time because I just closed on a couple others.
Right.
And so I do what I know how to do. I go to Craigslist, I write a little ad, and I sell my 2 contracts. And I make $18,000 from Los Angeles trading a contract in Phoenix. And I'm looking at this situation thinking, what am I doing telling terrible jokes in LA
Right.
where I can essentially just flip paper and make $18,000 in my sleep?
Right.
And so I decided to fold it up. 12/12/12, that was my birthday. I got in a U-Haul, I headed east to Phoenix, and I didn't look back.
Got it.
Yes.
And that's when you launched your company?
So
KeyGlee, is it called?
KeyGlee started in 2016. So about 4 years, I just independently bought and sold houses. I fixed and flipped some, sold a lot of contracts. I built up the war chest. And I started gaining a reputation for myself as a person who could close.
Right.
I made a ton of relationships with agents, a ton of relationships with other wholesalers, and I just strategically infiltrated the entire investment space in Phoenix, Arizona. And then I was approached by a couple of young bucks who were looking for an opportunity. And they had heard about me and they'd said, we know that you're the guy who can get the opportunities and we've got a ton of buyers that are looking for these opportunities. If you'd throw us a couple of bones, we could do some business.
Right.
I was in a relationship with someone else at the time who was selling my deals for me, so I didn't really give him much mind until that guy decided to get on a yacht and disappear for 30 days. So instead what I did was call the 2 young guys and threw them a bone. And they shocked me. They shocked me because they were organized, they were systemized, and then we loosely worked together for about a year until we all got together and formed KeyGlee. And since then, it's just been an incredible...
So what year was that? That was in 2016?
2016, correct.
So KeyGlee's business is you're a wholesaler.
Yes, sir.
So you go and search for houses to buy and then essentially flip before you close.
So our intentions are always to look at multiple exit strategies when we're writing offers, right? We never essentially walk into a deal and say,
This is a flip.
This is a contract flip or a fix and flip. We're going to evaluate it and compare it between a couple of properties. And if you watch our show, Triple Digit Flip, we actually break that down in every one of our episodes. We make the decision. That's something that you don't see in home renovation shows. Typically, they just show up with the house.
Right.
And that's something that the public looks at and says, how do I do this? I get it. This makes sense. But what the elephant in the room is here is how did you buy that house for so little? And so we break that down. We break down how we find these opportunities and then how we make the evaluation.
So how do you
what
do
to
that? How do you go and find an undervalued property?
Well, there's a ton of ways. For me, my favorite way is to make relationships with real estate agents. Because imagine this, if you're a realtor and you're talking to 50 people a day and you're seeing if they have interest in selling their house. Well, you're gonna walk into listing appointments that are gonna absolutely disturb you because of the condition of the property. Now, these realtors, they walk into these houses and their Louboutins get all gross because it's terrible in there, but they realize also that these houses aren't financeable. They can't put these on the MLS and sell them to a retail buyer. So they call me. So I'm a real big investor in Phoenix and I get those opportunities. Second, my friend Pace Morby, who you've interviewed before, he's a master of going to direct to seller. So I make relationships with folks like Pace and other wholesalers that spend their days cold calling homeowners. They door knock homeowners. I mean, Pace is a master negotiator and he teaches thousands of people how to do this. So I have a great lead source in my best friend in being able to generate these leads and bring opportunities to us as well. So not only do I have an army of individuals out there knocking on doors and making phone calls and talking to homeowners, I also have an army of agents who bring me the opportunities.
So how does it work? So you close about 100 deals a month in your
Correct.
own company, plus you have franchises.
Correct.
Right? So what does a typical deal look like?
So in terms of profitability or?
Like, well, it's like, the economics, and obviously profitability too, but like what's the price of the property?
Yeah.
What's a typical deal?
So typically I'm working in that under $400,000 range. A couple of years ago would have been under $250,000, but we've seen some dramatic increases in real estate since COVID.
Right.
So around under 400K is where my sweet spot is. And essentially we're looking at these, based off the contract that we get. So if a bird dog went out and said, hey, I can get this house locked up at $350,000. Well, the economics of it are we put down a nominal earnest deposit, $1,000 or $2,000, to tie up the property and do some due diligence. That gives us about 10 days to run our numbers.
Right.
So I'll get multiple opportunities that look like that. Now I'll evaluate them, underwrite them based off the potential. See, wholesaling is not offering people too little for their home.
Sure.
We actually offer 100% of as-is value. But what I'm selling is the potential.
Right.
So I'll look at the comps in a neighborhood, and if I can lock this house up for $350,000, but a renovated house with the same square footage, with the same, same bed bath count, single story, same type of property. If I can see that a house like that sell renovated for $550,000, well, I know I've got a $200,000 spread.
Right.
I can make the decision to dump $80,000 into the house and fix and flip it and sell it, or I can go to my database of investors and say, would you be interested in buying my contract?
Sure.
And I might make $30,000 on that. So I'll routinely make anywhere between $15,000 to $40,000 or $50,000 per contract that we flip, and per renovation we do, it's six figures.
Got it. And do you have like teams of people working for you, and then do you have a commission-based deal, you have salesmen working for you?
Absolutely. So we've got a staff of over 100 people. We pay very well. I've got sales guys in my floor who make $20,000, $30,000 a month.
Okay.
They do really well, right? And so they'll make typically anywhere between 10 to 20%. So if they're the person going out and sourcing the deal, they'll make around 20% of what we'll make in profit.
Okay.
And the guy who sells the deal to an investor will make around 10% of the profit. So we give away about 30% of our profits to our staff on every transaction.
So you were doing this between 2016 and then when did you start? What year did you start franchising?
We franchised in 2020.
So you just started in...
Correct.
Okay.
But
why did you decide to franchise it? Well,
so the model, right? The model is extremely lucrative, and there's a lack of knowledge out there, actual practical knowledge on how to do this business in an ethical way that can be extremely profitable as well.
Okay.
And since we perfected that, our capacity to find these buyers who will pay top dollar for these properties, our capacity to build relationships, our capacity to systemize the acquisition process of bringing these opportunities into the fold, people need to know how to do that, and they don't have the time or the resources to go and learn that. So what they'll do is they'll buy a franchise from us, they'll come in and get trained from us on how to do this business model, and then they'll run our model in their respective market.
So who's your typical franchise owner of the buyer?
Typically, they'll be entrepreneurial. They will have some understanding in real estate, or they'll have a lot of understanding in real estate. So there'll be a drive towards real estate.
Right.
And but again, they might have had golden handcuffs on, so they've been in a corporate job where they've been watching the real estate market. They've been really interested in it. They've got access to cash, but they're stuck at their job, and they want something to get out into, right? So if you compare us to like a Wendy's, you can go and buy a Wendy's and put $300,000 and $400,000 down, and you bought a job that's going to get you $60,000 a year max in profits.
Right.
You look at our situation, our franchise fee is $100,000, right? But you can take our business model and within 90 days start doing a tremendous number of wholesale contract flips, right? And so it's a very lucrative model for people.
Does it require up market to make money, or does this work in a declining market?
That's a great question. So it actually works on both sides. So what ends up happening in wholesale is we're, again, selling potential, right? Now, if we're going up, we're looking at where the comps are. But remember, on the way down, there's a lot of investors that are out there looking for opportunities as well. And so when the market is actually declining, that's when you see an actual increase in volume. So when I was wholesaling in like 2010 remotely from Los Angeles to Phoenix, it was incredible the number of transactions that we could accomplish. Now, the profit margins weren't, $20,000, $30,000 at that time. They were a lot lower, right? So in down markets, there's going to be greater volume, but the spreads are smaller.
Sure. Do you ever lose money on a deal or no?
I have. Very rarely. I think, I've done over 5,000 of these contract flips, and I have lost money under 5 times.
Oh, it's a great win percentage.
I'll tell you what, I'm not a gloater, but what I can say is I'm the best in this country at valuing property. I can spot the diamonds. And because I'm so good at that, I've taught my entire team. And I teach thousands of people across the country how to spot value as well. And once you can understand how much a property could be worth, you win the game.
Based on the numbers, here's what always sort of I don't get about this industry, right? And putting my skeptics hat on, right?
Sure.
So based on the numbers that you're saying, you should have a Fortune 500 company. You should be making $500 million a year. Like based on the numbers you're saying, in other words, if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, you're doing 100 deals, you make an average of $20,000 a deal. That's 20 right there, right? That's significant money right there, right? You're paying only 30% of it in commission, right? And then you also have 100 franchises.
Now the franchises are new, right? And so like that, the profitability and how much we're getting in royalties is just starting to develop. But last year we did 19 million in wholesale fees.
Right, but I mean those that you've taken in 10 million in franchise fees, right?
We have, yeah.
Right? So it just like, I guess the point I'm making is it's like I see a lot of these businesses. Yours is bigger than most.
Right.
But I don't see huge businesses.
Right.
Like I have a good friend of mine owns a company called Fashion Nova. I don't know if
Amazing company.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, right? Does a few billion a year and makes $500 million a year, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
Why don't I ever hear about this in your model? Because real estate is one of the most lucrative industries in the world.
Right.
So those you hear about, there are more probably billionaires in real estate. I guess there's stocks, real estate, but why not in this? It seems this is more micro, and I know a lot of people making a million a year, 2 million a year,
right.
300 grand a year. I don't find people making 500 million or $1 billion a year. Why is that?
Well, I think for my model,
you understand what I'm saying?
I totally understand. There is one comp. So there is one company that you probably aren't aware of. They're the Homevestors, the We Buy Ugly Houses franchise. They are
so they've scaled.
They're the scaled comp, right? And we're on their tail.
Okay.
And so it does exist, but in this business model, we're lacking sophistication.
All right, listen, this is a message from my favorite sponsor, NetSuite, an awesome company, part of Oracle, Larry Ellison, a legend. They're the best, right? So here's the deal. If you're a business owner, you don't need them to tell you that running a business is a tough thing to do, right? But you might be making it a lot harder on yourself than you have to be. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down anymore. It's time to upgrade to NetSuite. Time to stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you even close to the amount of information you truly need to run your business the right way. Ditch the spreadsheets, all that old software you've outgrown. Now is the time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility, the control over your financials that you need, your HR, your inventory, e-commerce, and more. Everything all in one spot, instantaneously. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue a year, you can save a ton of time and a ton of money with NetSuite. You want to join over 24,000 companies who are using NetSuite right now. Let them show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/wolf. Schedule a free product tour now at netsuite.com/wolf. That's netsuite.com/wolf. It just seems like, to me, like I'm pretty good at spotting out a good business.
Yeah.
It seems like a really good business.
It is.
Right?
It is.
it just seems like a business that was that lucrative would have some massive, massive companies.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that as the business model starts to gain more traction and light, because here's like the funny thing.
There's shows about it on TV.
Yeah, our shows on
it's
it.
Just, there's something about this. Like I'm trying, and it's not. There's nothing. Listen, this business is a legitimate business.
Yeah,
I know it's legitimate. I know you guys. I know you guys. You do good stuff. My son-in-law works with Pace. Right. I know you. So I'm not trying to say. What I'm saying is that there's something about this business that almost stops it from scaling. Well, like some industries just scale, others don't. So is this a great business to make a couple million a year at, or is it? Can you really? Is it easy to take it to where you've taken it, or is there something that gets in the way? Some friction.
I think there's.
Let me stop. Okay?
Yeah,
because I think is it that it's too easy to start, so everyone breaks off on their own before you can get traction and take. So people steal your idea and just they work for you, they do it, and they become your competitor before you could ever scale. Is that what's going on?
It happens sometimes. I mean, we don't lose a lot of staff. In all honesty, we don't. Right? We retain our staff very well, but we've had a few guys run out and try to do it on their own, and they fail. It's hard, Jordan. It's really hard to do. This is,
being hard to do is a good thing.
Yes.
For a business owner. That means it's not so easy. Everyone can do it. So why aren't there more massive players?
I think they're on their way. I truly do. I'm hearing about them. I'm seeing them, coming around. We get their marketing, we get their emails, and I actually try to partner with them. I try to collaborate with them. We want to do business with the up and comers, rather than look at them in a negative way, right? I truly believe in collaborating over competing with people, because I think you grow and you actually gain more market share if you have that approach.
Right.
But I think that this will be something that gains more mainstream light. Here's the other thing. If you ask real estate agents across the nation if they understand what wholesaling is, the majority of them are going to tell you they think it's illegal. Truly. They don't understand it. They just don't understand it. And I think it's that whole
stigma,
just the stigma, and the fact that people don't understand the concept of selling potential, because that's what we're doing, right? If you look at the way that wholesaling has been categorized in the news, some people will say, oh, it's opportunistic. These guys are going out there and they're lowballing old ladies and getting, giving a grandma 50 cents on the dollar for her house. That's not the facts at all. Right. We're actually helping sellers who have properties that would be very difficult to sell. Now, in fact, you bring up another great point. Why haven't you seen this at scale? Actually, you have. Silicon Valley has been playing this game. You've heard of Open Door.
Yes.
You've heard of OfferPad. Mm. That's exactly what they do.
So that's them. That's the model.
That's the model at scale from Silicon Valley.
So what are they doing in revenue now?
Open Door is still, I don't know if they're revenue positive yet. I know Zillow's been struggling a little bit, but they're definitely growing. They're definitely growing. So you see this model at scale. They don't call it wholesaling. They call it house flipping.
Yeah. So do you would you say you're a specialist in the Phoenix market?
Correct.
And does that mean that when you go to Tucson, the rules are different? Is the rules the same in every market, or there are unique things that you have to know in each market?
There are absolutely unique things you have to know in every market. And so
is it a regional? Is that why it's more of a regional specific players there? Like, so there's a huge guy, you're the big guy in Phoenix. There's a big guy in Texas.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And we like to be the big guys in multiple markets. So our franchises are starting to elevate and rise as, the cream does rise. And so we are starting to become the major players in the markets that we're entering. But we are the gorilla in the space right now.
In 2008, so you lost everything, like most of my friends in real estate. Like I have a lot of very wealthy friends, and a lot of them made it back, right? Yeah. But they got buried in 2008, right? So I get that. You left the industry and you came back in. Do you think if you would have, in retrospect, should you have stayed in and just fought through? Would you be further along, or no? Like what you were doing was sort of just like it was a different thing. And your business, let me say this, through a crash like 2008, how would your business model survive now?
Well, there's a key difference between how I'm playing now and how I played in 2008. I loved leverage then. I don't take leverage now. So I'm in all cash positions all the time.
Okay, so you learned the lesson that most people have to learn the hard way is that when you leverage, it's beautiful on the way up and really ugly, uglier on the way down.
Correct. And so our capacity to ride that wave at that time was just not there. I couldn't debt service. And so there was just nothing we could do except get foreclosed on and take our beats.
Do you think that leverage serves a role in real estate if it's done properly?
Of course. But we were so unsophisticated at the time. We were really just two people that were bootstrapping this business model and had no clue what we were doing. So yes, I think that there's some really intelligent people who understand how to use leverage correctly. For instance, again, Pace, my friend, he's a master at understanding leverage. And I watch him. I watch the deals he does and how he can maneuver and leverage and create cash flow magically from just using leverage. And so yes, I think done correctly, leverage is beautiful. I have PTSD from it though.
Right.
So I'm allergic to it. And that's why it's so interesting that him and I run the way we do, because he'll run towards leverage. I'm constantly running away from it.
When you sell someone a franchise, so it's a fee of 100, do you do financing? So if someone doesn't have the 100 grand, you let them pay it off over time?
Depending on their experience level. So if we think that they're going to be a really good operator and we could mold them into what we think they can perform to, yes. If we think that they're really just here for the dream and they're going to talk more shit than they're going to be able to do, then we don't want their money. We don't even want to take that deal because we want successes.
I have a ton of young listeners, right? In their 20s, 30s, right? Would you say that, like, for the average person in some sort of 9 to 5 job, is this just a better alternative than that? Would you say?
Hell yeah. I've got people who have 9 to 5 jobs that have this as their side hustle. For instance, there's a lady, Brittany Berryman, who's a student of mine. She's got an amazing 9 to 5 job. She makes, over 100 grand a year in her 9 to 5. She made $117,000 last month flipping contracts. I have another guy, Noah Blankenship, 19 years old, student of mine, was lost, had no idea what to do with life. He was literally just living in his parents' house, lost. Comes into our program, learns how to do what we do. He made $119,000 last month. This kid's 19 years old.
And is those typical months for people like that?
They can be. It really depends on your capacity to spot the value and take the action. So if you plug into the right networks, for instance, like a KeyGlee franchise, and you create a great relationship with the franchise owner and you bring them multiple opportunities, it's not unheard of to do 10, 15 of those contract flips a month and make $10,000 on every one of them.
Do you sell franchises all across the country?
Yes, sir.
And do you sell master franchises or just simply, is there any limit to how many you'll sell in one territory? Or
there's a limit to how many we can sell. It's 1 unit per population density of 500,000.
Okay.
So we have a maximum of 660 franchises that we can sell across the country.
Got it. So what areas right now you think are there's certain hot areas, like you just say, if you're living in this area, give me a call. You should really look at this. Are there certain key areas that you'd want to be looking at this opportunity?
The United States of America.
Just the United States.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, real estate.
Montana's as good as Chicago.
Real estate in America is crazy right now. Jordan, I'm loving that we get to talk about this because I think you could give me some insight. Real estate traditionally has been dictated on home buyers, like regular people, right? They controlled prices, their demand, interest rates. That's what created the market cycle, right? But since 2010, we've had so much private equity buying real estate. We have Silicon Valley buying real estate. We have hedge funds buying real estate. They're protecting against inflation. They're getting massive cash flow. They're jacking rents up across the United States. They're removing so much inventory that we have a supply crunch. And we have not, since the crash, built enough houses to sustain what we require. So we've got this incredible opportunity, but because it's artificial demand, right?
Remember this, no matter how you slice it, real estate activity is very interest rate sensitive. And we, since 2002, have been living in a ultra low interest rate cycle that even became more ultra low after 2008, right? So in 2008, there was a decision to be made. Do we stop the party and let the shit happen, let it fall where it may, or do we kick the can down the road? And the government took the position, let's kick the can down the road further, and they put the system awash with money, cut interest rates to zero or less than zero, and what we're feeling now is the result of that. So the problematic thing or the troubling thing is that we're finally seeing inflation really start to make its way through the system. And I'm older than you. I remember, you might find this shocking, but when I was first getting into the business world, interest rates, if you wanted to buy a home, was 23, 24%.
Right.
So look at what you're doing right now and just imagine the prices of homes, what they would be if interest rates were 20% or 20%. The market would collapse because the ability, everything right now, and it's so insane. And I, all the richest people I know, I have a lot of very successful friends, right? They're all like, it's going to be fucking hell to pay. Like everyone's looking around. The billionaires, and I'm like, I don't know when this fucking party ends. I don't want to be around when this fucking party, because there is going to be like an explosion heard around the world when this shit comes back to roost, because you cannot sustainably do what the U.S. government is doing. The only way they're getting away is because the dollar is the reserve currency, so they can just print more money. But interest rates are like not normal. It's not normal. You go back in history.
Low.
So if interest rates are just 8%, what happens to everyone's rates? Like what happens to do home? You can't. The home, whether it's new buyers, whether it's hedge funds, anybody, it's all based on their borrowing money for the vast majority of the purchase. So myself, I look at it and say, I could buy, I just bought a new boat, right? 80-foot boat, right? Beautiful boat, $3 million boat, all right? It's, what it should cost me? Zero.
Wow.
Nothing. I put down X. I get a bigger tax credit back the first year, which exceeds my X. The interest rates are so low that my payment, after I char it, I make money.
Right.
So I have no cash outlay. I have no, I have a positive tax consequence, no ongoing expenses. And because of the supply chain shortage, at least now, things aren't even depreciating. So, yeah, of course, everyone's buying boats.
Right. Your boat's doing the same thing real estate's doing.
Everything's going with the same thing real estate.
Right.
So,
right.
But what happens, okay, now you have 6% inflation. And that's a massive understatement. At a certain point in time, the Federal Reserve has to start raising rates.
Right.
That's when I'm going to, we'll all look and say, what the fuck is going on? And we'll see what's what. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm not.
Right.
I'm buying shit.
Yeah.
I'm also.
But you're not buying anything on an adjustable rate mortgage.
No, but I wouldn't be scared of an adjustable rate mortgage as long as it didn't have a high margin. In other words, if it was a regular one, not an exploding one like a subprime one. Right. There's nothing. Listen, the point is most people that I know are buying. They're buying 5 years, 10 years. Okay, and you're getting these. You can buy. You wouldn't believe it. You could buy a $20 million home right now here, and you put down $5 million, and they're giving you 1.5%, 2%.
It's crazy.
It's fucking insane.
Pace and I were actually communicating about, like, how do people actually finance these houses?
Because they don't cost anything.
Right.
They cost none. A lot of this is a little exception because in this part of town, a lot of it's it's just borrowed money against positions that you have. So you don't even. It's different when you get to the ultra top of it. It gets a bit weird because there's private banking involved, and it's not duplicatable for the average person. But in the average, let's say in $2-3 million homes, okay, people are putting down like 20% or something, whatever, 25%. Borrowing the rest at a ridiculously low rate, and their mortgage payment might be a few $1,000s. When in the real world, when they go back, I remember it's like when I first bought my first home was $2 million, my first beautiful home, and like my rate was like 9%, and that was good.
Right.
30-year fixed, 9%. So prices keep going up. I don't know where it's going to end. Like you're looking at the rise of Bitcoin and things like people saying it's a hedge against inflation. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I think that for someone like yourself and all the people that are buying your franchise or working for you or thinking about it, I don't think you can worry about when the music's going to stop.
Well,
I think you just make as much money as you can for as long as you can and realize that at some point it's going to stop, and be cognizant of that fact.
Absolutely. And here's the beauty of our model. We don't hold the bag.
Well, that's where you went wrong the last time, right?
We flip, we sell the contracts. We're never holding the bag.
Right. But there'll be no more buy. When the shit hits okay, listen, in 2008, okay, I was writing books.
Right.
And I had a book I wanted to write, and I sold my book before for $1 million. You know what they offered me for my book that I was writing? Like 40 grand. Like money dry. When money dries up,
it's gone.
It's gone. This is the money around. You saw that. This is, you can't borrow. No one buys shit. There's nowhere to flip to. So whatever you have, you get caught with, right?
Right.
You've learned your lesson, so you're not leveraging, so you're not going to get destroyed. But you'll take a little hickey, and then if you're smart, but the smart people, you're making a fortune right now. So you're waiting for this. Like, listen, you're almost at that moment you can really make money, because when most people have fucked up and over leveraged, and then prices crash, then you could buy things back really cheap.
1,000%.
That's where you can really make money. So I'm not trying to say that I think your model is great, but to answer your question, I think that you if you look back at history, it's almost a certainty that at some point in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be hell to pay. When that day comes, who knows?
I agree with you. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you.
Make as much as you can.
Make as much money as you can. Buy your KeyGlee franchise now and make millions of dollars. And then, when hell comes to pay, you'll be fine.
Listen, I don't know the particulars of your business, but based on what you're saying, I would say look at the opportunity. I mean, listen, these numbers. I know you guys are legit. That's why you're on the show. So
you actually got to get audited financials when you're a franchise, right? So
I know, but that's the point. I just know you're not scammers. That's so I know it's legit, right? So you should definitely look at it, because it looks to me, it seems like a pretty easy way to make a couple $1 million a year for someone.
I agree.
Right? Yes, I don't know about 10 to 20 million a year, but that's pretty much
that for our average franchise. That's pretty much
what they make, right?
What they can do.
So if that's for you, and you're like in some dead end job making 60 grand a year or 80 grand a year, I gotta say, I know a lot of people. It sounds like it's not real, but it's real. People are doing this in the real estate flip game. The key is to get involved with the group of people that are legitimate, because for every guy like you, or there's a lot of fucking criminals out there doing this shit that are going to separate you from your money, and they're not going to support you. So, the key is get in with a good group.
Yep.
Right? Get educated. And then,
and do your
really
due diligence.
Hard, right?
Figure out who people are. Put them to the test. Hold their feet to the fire.
Right.
Check them out. Do your due diligence. Read about them. Look at our financials. Really, really learn about the people that you're doing business with.
Is there a way they can find you? Is there a website? How do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone's interested in a franchise, just email me, Jamil, Jamil, at KeyGlee. That's KeyGlee.com.
Key, as in like a key to a house.
Yes, sir.
Glee,
as in you're happy and gleeful.
KeyGlee.
Yeah, and that's really where the word came from.
JamilAtKeyGlee.com.
JamilAtKeyGlee.com. And if you want to get an understanding of how our business works, and you're just bored on a Saturday afternoon, watch our television show on A&E. It's noon every Saturday on A&E. It's called Triple Digit Flip. Myself, Pace Morby, my sister Rahima, and Pace's beautiful wife Laura. We flip houses around our town. We flip contracts around our town, and we have fun doing it.
I don't really care about that. What I want to know is you guys fighting and having cat fights.
No, we're not like that. It's not like that. It's not your flip the table reality show.
Okay, so it's not like you guys. You're out there just she's called me a bitch, and she says my sister.
Nothing like that at all. It's too.
Some of the shows are like that.
They are, and those are. That's entertainment. Yeah, we're educational, right? So bring a pad and paper. We're actually teaching people how to do this on the show.
Okay, you're not having an affair with Pace's wife.
No.
I'm not saying I don't want that to happen. But some of these shows just fucking
nothing like that. Nothing like that. In fact, these are my family members, right? So I get to hang out with my best friend, my sister, my best friend's wife, and we just love doing what we do.
All right.
It's incredible.
Everyone will check it out. Listen, I know the company and people, so it's certainly worth looking into if you're not in a position right now financially that you want to be in, and you want to have a better opportunity. This is something you should definitely look at. All right. So everyone, again, thanks for coming on. Jamil,
Thank you,
you're awesome.
You're awesome, man.
All right. Hey, everyone, check this out, and also tune in next week for another awesome episode of The Wolf's Den. Share this with your friends, your family, and anyone else you can think of. Take care. Boom.